So Cain Velasquez sentencing was today over the highway shooting that happened in 2022. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison with some time served. So we're gonna look into it. I'm gonna give you my thoughts on this whole thing. I made my video yesterday talking about the trial a day before and kind of just gave my thoughts about this. So this is probably just gonna be me rehashing a lot of points I made in my last video, but also talking about the sentencing, whether or not it's fair, and all that. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Cain Velasquez sentenced to 7 years in prison after pleading no contest in an attempted unalive case. You gotta walk out on YouTube in the first minute with certain words. So Cain Velasquez was sentenced to 5 years in prison on Monday after pleading no contest to a variety of charges, including attempted unaliving following his initial arrest back in 2022, according to sources, multiple reports. The sentencing brings to an end a 3 year saga after Velasquez was hit with numerous charges, including premeditated unaliving, felony assault, and gun related charges. Velasquez appeared in court along his family and his attorney before the sentence was handed down by Judge Arthur Bocanegra. I'm going to get to him in a second. The judges of this case need to be talked about. Prosecutors in this case were seeking 30 years to life in prison, while Velasquez's defense attorneys sought probation and time served. In the end, Velasquez gets a 5 year sentence behind bars. Velasquez also gets credit for already served time already served at 1,283 days, which includes when he was already in jail as well as time spent on house arrest. As a result, Velasquez likely spends less than 2 years behind bars. The ordeal surrounding the former UFC heavyweight champion started when he was first arrested in February 2022 after he went on an 11-mile high speed chase pursuing a car containing Harry Goularte, a man accused of hurting the fighter's son at a daycare owned by his mother. Goularte faces separate charges of his own child endangerment, but after his arrest, he was released on bond against the advice of the prosecution. Another thing we're going to come back to that led to the high speed chase where Velasquez fired several rounds from a 40 caliber handgun at the vehicle containing Gouliard, while ultimately a bullet struck his stepfather Paul Bender in the arm. He sustained non-life threatening injuries as a result. When the car chase ended, Velasquez was arrested without incident, but the Morgan Hill police department, and he was hit with a multitude of charges that kept him behind bars for the next 8 months before he was eventually granted bail. The district attorney also stated that a search of suspects' phone found searches for uh, assault cases where victims' family fights back and assault cases where victims' family retaliate. In a memorandum filed prior to the sentencing, Deputy District Attorney Aaron French, who I'm going to get to as well, detailed why Velasquez should receive a stiff penalty for the crime. The defendant's crime is severe. Justice demands a sentence that is equally severe to hold the defendant accountable for his reckless and dangerous actions, and the lasting physical and psychological injuries he left upon the victims and the community. The court should impose a sentence of 30 years to life in prison. What about the trauma that this guy gave Kane's kid? What about that? What about the fact that you let him out and you let him stay at daycare, a daycare around children after he was already found out to be abusive to children? Velasquez remained out on bail on initially awaiting trial before striking a deal with the district attorney's office to plead no contest, which took the premeditated uh, unaliving charge off the table. That charge could have ended with a life sentence for Velasquez if he was found guilty. Since his release, Velasquez returned to coaching MMA as well as making appearances as a professional wrestler while awaiting the date for his sentencing. There were several delays before Velasquez finally appeared in court on Monday to hear his punishment. Following his arrest, numerous members of the MMA community spoke out in support of Velasquez, including his close friend and UFC Hall of Famer Daniel Cormier. UFC CEO Dana White even wrote a letter of support for Velasquez when he was still behind bars after his bail was initially denied. Now the former UFC heavyweight champion prepares to go to prison after his sentencing, although his actual time there is expected to be far less than 5 years. I'm assuming he'll do too, but again, this will kind of just be rehashing yesterday. Why does this other guy get to walk? Why does this piece of human shit get to walk away, barely got charged, slap on the wrist, and I cannot stress it enough. As somebody who had a charge harming a young child was let to stay at a daycare, like it makes no sense to me. And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh well, the stepfather, he knew about it. He knew what was going on." I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that here. I don't know what they knew. They knew about their son. Obviously, they knew that he got charged with it, but to put him in a daycare, and then conveniently enough, it's former UFC heavyweight champion Cain Velasquez's kid that you decide to do this to. It it's mind boggling to me. I don't get how that gets a slap on the wrist. I get Kane serving time. I expected him to get time. I really thought the 30 years was fucking ridiculous. You know, like I said in my last video, you put anybody else in that situation where it's your son, daughter, nephew, sibling, niece, whatever it is, I think 99% of people do, well, no, 95% of people would do exactly what Kane did, in my opinion. Especially, the MMA community, we like combat sports, we like violence. Most of us are absolute fucking lunatics. So that would factor into the conversation. Like, God forbid this happens to anybody else. No, not just you watching the video, not just Kane or any other fighter. This is the most disgusting thing you can do to somebody. You can do it to a child. That trauma is gonna stay there forever. That guy is gonna walk around probably doing the exact same thing to younger children. While Kane's kid loses his father, Well, I know it's 2 years. 2 years uh, to a kid, that's a lot of time. 2 years when you're an adult, that just goes like that. We're already in March, man. But I don't know. I just I put myself in that situation. I would have done a lot worse than what Kane did, and I really hate the fact that Kane did it on a speedway. If he didn't do it in live traffic, you talk about many things. You talk about nobody finding out who did it. You talk about maybe it is a lesser ordeal because the prosecution really stressed the endangerment of other people, and I totally understand that. And I understand that he needs to serve some kind of punishment for that. But you gotta punish the guy harming children, and there's so many cases. You know, the Diddy case, right? That's one of the biggest, one of if not the biggest stories out right now. Just you know, lawsuit after lawsuit after charge after new headline after new accusation. But then you get cases like these where these guys do it. They're out on the street instantly. I I hate it, man. I really do. And like Cain Velasquez is one of the most stand up fighters we have. Like I really, I don't think anybody in the UFC or anybody who has been in the UFC has an issue with Cain Velasquez. Cain Velasquez, one of the nicest fighters. Pretty sure he gets along with everybody. Um, but yeah, man, I'm praying for his family, dude. You know, how are you supposed to look at this situation? Not only from Cain, not only from his son that had this happen to. What about his other kids? Or what about his wife and the rest of his family, right? So if this happens again, whoever does it, they'll be let out. But if Cain does something about it, he he, he gets 2 years more than Buddy who does that. I don't get it, but I know that Cain is supposed to be a coach on GFL or like a manager. Forgot what title exactly, but hopefully he can go back to that, man. I really want to see him fight. He is getting older, but yeah, man, it's brutal. I hate the fact that the biggest stories in MMA right now are outside of the cage. Our cases like these, our cases like the Connor situation I just dropped too that I had to look into. But I don't know. I hope the best for Kane. I hope that I hope that he goes to a good jail, and it should take more service time. Get out there, go back to his family, go back to his kid. But I don't know, man. This doesn't sit right with me. That the judge, uh, the initial judge, I think it was that one lady who basically went after him. She was also working at life, so I don't know. I respect this judge. I feel like it's a difficult situation. You gotta look past the bias of being a fan of Kingdom, watching him in the cage, but I don't know, dude. I don't see myself doing anything different. in that exact same situation. But that's all I really got for this video. Let me know in the comments down below. What do you think about Cain Velasquez being sentenced to 5 years with basically 3 years served? Um, and yeah, it's brutal, man. I don't get how people like that can walk, but Cain gets prison now. It's stupid, man, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thoughts and prayers with the Velasquez family. We're rooting for you, Kane, to come back out. And I don't know. I would love to see him be a coach, be a manager, whatever it is. I love watching his podcast and the interviews he does. But we'll see. That's all I got though. Thanks for watching. Later.